years to sort of reap the benefits of his own appointees making rulings about his orders and his policy. And that's a unique sort of facet, at least in recent American history, of how the Supreme Court is ruling on all of these issues.
Oil days are very busy. I know keeping up with Donald Trump, but at the same time, he's also fallen out with Canada again, it seems.
Yeah, and he is calling off trade talks with Ottawa. This is a big deal. The U.S. and Canada have been sort of heating up these trade discussions ahead of that early July deadline that the president has said to reach new trade deals or have punishing new tariffs go into place. What the dispute is over is this digital services tax. The Canadians putting on this 3% tax on American technology companies like Netflix, for example, that was going to go into effect on Monday. The president, I think, really taking offense at that. The Canadians, I think, have been using this as leverage in the trade talks, and it did appear, at least on the surface, that the president and the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, had been getting along fairly well. We saw them in the Oval Office. The president was in Canada at the beginning of last week for the G7. It seemed that if their relationship was much better than the president's relationship with Justin Trudeau, who was Carney's predecessor. But clearly now, on this issue specifically of this digital tax, the relationship souring somewhat, and I think it will cause now some chaos, as the president says that he will decide on a new tariff rate for Canada within 1 week. Obviously, these two countries, major trading partners, it could really wreak havoc potentially on all of these industries that could potentially be affected.
We'd like to welcome everyone aboard the Duca Express monorail. For your own safety, please remain seated or utilize the provided handrail while the train is in motion. If you'll direct your attention to the right side of the monorail, you can observe Duca World's famous Fifth Top Mountain. Standing at over 100 meters tall, Fifth Top Mountain is the largest man-made structure in Duca World and features the 5-star Fifth Top Grill. Coming up in the heart of Duca World, Duca Town, USA, featuring the Cola Cars Arena, the Bradford Amphitheater, and the Parker Dinner Theater.
That's one of the big questions hanging over this deal. The
M23 rebels
that the DRC accuses Rwanda of supporting are not a part of this. Their alliance, the River Alliance, are not a part of this as well. However, they are involved in the separate mediation process that's being set up and run by Qatar. Qatar helped facilitate this peace agreement signed today that was mediated by the United States. The foreign ministers of Rwanda and the DRC were expected at the White House. President Trump said they were very honored to be there, and he says we're wrapping up that war today, essentially putting an end to it. But the background that he may not know is that this conflict has been running for a long time. Millions of people have been displaced. This year alone, nearly 7,000 have been killed, and that's at the heart of this dispute. What they've agreed to is that Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo will respect territorial integrity, will disarm all non-state actors, all the militias, and they will allow for humanitarian access for return of refugees and internally displaced people. The implementation will be crucial here. They're setting up a joint security mechanism to make sure it's implemented. But it was curious what President Trump said about this Rwanda-DRC deal, specifically about the rare earth minerals according to it, which has been for a while, and he expressly said this.
We're getting from the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo as part of it. They're so honored to be here. They never thought they'd be coming to. Look, this is a very tough part of the world. They never thought, they were just telling me they never thought they'd ever be coming to the White House, and they're so honored.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has the world's largest reserves of cobalt. That is the mineral that powers everything from mobile phones, computers, to electric cars, and it's in very high demand. And that's already getting criticism from the Congolese on social media, from other Africans who feel that this is an exploitative deal. It's a way for the U.S. to get their hands on these crucial rare earth minerals. It did not come up in the actual signing agreement by Marco Rubio, the foreign ministers of Rwanda and the DRC. President Trump praised Massad Boulos, that's his senior advisor on Africa, who's also the father-in-law of his daughter Tiffany, for helping make this happen. He's the expert in Africa. But the detail about that rare earth mineral component will be interesting, and I think a lot of the questions will be asked about how did that become a part of this deal? Was in the U.S.'s interest to do this? And why did the African Union not get this across the line? The African Union chief was there, Max, but they didn't really play an active part in this, and mediation efforts here in Nairobi, in the Angolan capital Luanda, so far have not borne any fruit.
Okay, I think you keep reporting on it. Larry, thank you so much for joining us for that. We turn to CNN exclusive reporting now on the Trump administration's secret efforts to restart diplomatic talks with Iran. This includes an undisclosed meeting at the White House the day before the US attacks, the discussion of easing sanctions, and the possibility of helping Iran access up to $30 billion for a civilian energy-producing nuclear program that does not involve uranium enrichment. Our US security correspondent Kylie Atwood joins us now from Washington. I mean, it is fascinating to see how the White House has been working on all of this, and it does speak to the idea that they're most focused on a diplomatic solution.
Yeah, that's right. We've learned that as they were planning for these military strikes, they were simultaneously working on these new terms. This was just the day before the military strikes occurred. There was a secretive meeting at the White House with Gulf partners to talk about some of the terms the U.S. could put on the table with the Iranians. Those conversations with Gulf partners to discuss these terms have continued even after those U.S. military strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. And some of the terms that have been discussed include lifting sanctions on Iran, freeing up $6 billion in Iranian funds that are currently restricted from being used, and also gaining access to investment of $20 to $30 billion for Iran's civilian nuclear program, not for a program that would have any enrichment, but effectively just for a program that would be able to produce nuclear energy. Trump administration officials warn that there are many ideas being floated right now, that nothing is set in stone, nothing has been formally presented to the Iranians as far as we know, but these active talks are critical as we consider what the next steps here might actually be. Trump said that next week there will be talks between the U.S. and Iran. We have not heard anything from the Iranian side confirming that that is set to take place, but one thing that we heard from lawmakers today, who were getting a briefing from top Trump administration officials after these U.S. military strikes, was that Secretary Marco Rubio said that the U.S. does want to sit down face-to-face with the Iranians, not through interlocutors, to have these discussions. But of course, even Republican lawmakers are wary of that tactic, saying that, the Iranians might sit down, but then they might disappear, go underground for some time, really, that even if you had those direct talks, they wouldn't necessarily produce the ends that the Trump administration is seeking. We really have yet to see where this all goes. It hinges, of course, on communications, on a meeting actually coming to fruition.
We have actually had some images, haven't we? Some recent images of the Fordo nuclear facility in Iran, which is what America attacked. Take us through what you're seeing here, what stood out for you.
Yeah, these are new images that just came out today showing activity around that Fordo nuclear site in Iran that was struck by U.S. military strikes in recent days, but also was previously struck as part of the Israeli military operation. As far as we can tell, these images demonstrate that there is evacuation happening at this site, but this comes as there are many questions about what the actual final assessment will look like in terms of these U.S. strikes that went for this facility. We don't know what that final assessment actually is yet. We know those efforts are ongoing, but it's clear that the Iranians are getting on the site now. We should also note, however, that the IAEA is no longer there, and they have been a crucial partner for the world in really understanding what Iran's nuclear program looks like, what capabilities they have, what inventory they have. Without them there, that is critical eyeballs that the international community no longer has, which will be a challenge going forward, particularly as Iran is now trying to get the IAEA out of the country in an indefinite period going forward.
Listen.
I believe that this mission was a tremendous success and that we have effectively destroyed Iran's nuclear program today.
I think obliterated is much too strong a word. There was serious and perhaps severe damage done, but it's how much damage was done. We really need a final assessment.
I don't want people to think that the site wasn't severely damaged or obliterated. It was. But having said that, I don't want people to think the problem is over, because it's not.
I just do not think the president was telling the truth when he said this program was obliterated.
CNN's Annie Greer joins us from Capitol Hill. It's pretty clear what's happening there, isn't it? The Republicans want to move this forward and talk about diplomacy, whereas the Democrats really want to focus on what they see as a deception.
Boss, someone's coming through the gauntlet.
That's right. I mean, there is this big question of how can Republicans and Democrats be in the same room, get the same briefing from the same briefers, and come out with such different opinions of what they heard. But the House lawmakers today heard from the same briefers that senators heard from yesterday, which is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe.
I heard you were looking for me.
You heard the alarm, right? That means someone's in the car.
Right. Time to put on a show.
Hell yeah! No better way to earn a Raiders' respect than kicking some ass in
Sure.
this one for the arena.
Just when I think I've seen it all, Newsbreak tells me there's a new sheriff in town. Well, not a new sheriff, but you get my drift. And me, I need to see more. But here's the thing, Newsbreak is not just a neighborhood gossip app. It tells me everything from local crime, news, and even what streets to take to avoid traffic in the morning. Imagine this, it's the night before Christmas and your kids are out and about. But with Newsbreak, they can know what streets to avoid in order to have a safe and healthy holiday season. And the best part, it's free. You heard that right. No subscriptions, no paid ads, just pure information right at your fingertips. So what are you waiting for? Download now.
Yes,
how are you doing, Adeline?
Yes, he raised again today that future strikes are not off the table, which again draws more questions around how serious are these diplomatic talks if the threat of further further attacks from the U.S. is still on the table. So that's just another element here of the confusion around what comes next.
Okay, thank you so much, Annie Greer. Now, Iran's president says Israeli strikes on his country were a deliberate attempt to sabotage nuclear talks between Iran and the US. Masoud Pezeshkian said if Iran hadn't responded, the situation could have escalated into a full-blown, uncontrollable regional. Israel's defense minister today said he's ordered the IDF to prepare an enforcement plan to prevent Iranian nuclear and missile development. Israel can said the IDF strikes on Iran were only a preview of a new policy. Let's get some perspective now from former State Department Middle East negotiator Aaron David Miller. He's a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. It is interesting, isn't it, this idea that Iran's putting out there that it's actually
right now I'm
Israel
trying to
do
the rigmarole in order to get the unlimited gas laser called the Tunis from Nuka World.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice talking point. I think the negotiations through 5 rounds had not come to even what normal humans would regard as a breakthrough on the enrichment issue. So and frankly, I don't believe in the story that a clever Israeli Prime Minister conned or maneuvered an American president into these strikes.
Hold on a second, I'll try and fix that.
I think included negotiations were not going well. I think he was impressed by Israel's strikes of June 12, June 13, and I think he wanted some of that. As a consequence, we've got a new situation. Look, I don't believe in the tooth fairy, and I don't believe in transformations when it comes to the Middle East. I've been around and worked in this region for the better part of 40 years, and it rarely offers up black and white solutions. It offers up gray, and I think even if you concede, and I'm quite prepared to, that these strikes between Israel and particularly the U.S. have done grave damage to Iran's nuclear program. By no means, it seems to me, have they created the obliteration, the destruction of that program. We bought ourselves time. The question becomes, what do we do with it? What do the Israelis do with it? And perhaps most important, what do the Iranians do with it?
Well, the Iranians, do you get the sense that they do want to have some discussions now? There apparently have been discussions between the US and Iran.
How about now I turn down the volume of the live feed from overseas? No problem. Thanks for letting me know. Oh, no problem. No need to apologize. I'm not really good at speaking any languages at all except for English, but I do know a few words in Spanish. That's about it. Opponent number 2 coming up, folks. You don't need to worry about apologizing too much. It just goes to show you're a polite person, that's all.
Well, you know the deal.
Time to put on a show.
Hell yeah! Just head for the arena whenever you're ready.
I'm not sure. I've got all the prints and everything, but I'm not really sure what level I am. Looks like I'm about level 45 or so. My triangle button doesn't work, so I can't really tell for sure. This might be the opponent that has the nuka grenades, I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah, he had nuclear grenades, all right. You usually have to go through 6 opponents before you get the guy called the Rogue Knight, which is who has the Gatling laser. It's considered one of the best, if not the very best weapon in Fallout 4 because it has unlimited ammo.